Out of absolutely nowhere, stage 3 cancer. I didn't have any family history, no risk factors. There was nothing to make me think that this was going to be cancer. But then I was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. I mean, I was already doing all the right things to prevent cancer. Eating right, exercising, at least that's what I thought. That's why in this video, I'm showing you exactly what my symptoms were. These are things that most people miss. What test finally diagnosed my cancer? This was a big one for me and what all the other tests miss. And the steps that I took to beat this disease. Knowing my story could save your life. I was living a pretty average life. I was working my way up in my career. I worked at a local cancer center to support women through their cancer treatment. Every day, getting to support people going through cancer treatment was an amazing job. I loved it. In July, my fiance, who's now my husband, well, we had just bought our first home, close to family, but not too close, you know? In September, we got married. It was the best. A beautiful fall day surrounded by family and friends. Life was good. But this was honestly the first symptom I missed. After our wedding, we went on a 2-week honeymoon to Italy and Greece. We did what everyone should do in Italy and Greece. We drank wine and we ate pizza. After 2 weeks of overindulgence, I had naturally gained a little bit of weight. Nothing major, maybe 5 pounds or so. I kind of brushed it off, but even weeks later, it didn't seem to be coming off. I knew my body really well. I ate healthy, I exercised, but I didn't lose any weight. And if anything, I was gaining weight. But this was my number one symptom. This is what really started hitting alarm bells for me. I had relentless heartburn. I had heartburn all the time. This had never happened to me before. I had to keep Tums in my desk drawer at the hospital because I just couldn't get through a day without them. My inner voice was saying something wasn't right, but I kind of pushed it aside and just kept going. It was just heartburn, right? Didn't sound so serious. But I finally decided to go to my family doctor. Hopefully just get a prescription for this heartburn and stop having to chew Tums all the time. She ran a couple tests to rule things out. Pregnancy test, I wasn't pregnant. A blood test for ulcers, that came back negative. So she sent me for an ultrasound. She said that all types of things can grow on your ovaries, like fibroids or cysts, and maybe something was there. We were just gonna take a look with an ultrasound and see if anything was going on. It was 5 p.m. on Friday afternoon when my doctor's name showed up on my phone. I stood there frozen at my kitchen counter. She said, "You have a tumor on your ovary." It measured 21 centimeters by 10 centimeters. "I'm sorry, you have cancer." I was only 30 years old. I laid down on my bed and I felt like I was in a free fall. I wasn't crying, I wasn't screaming. Everything was just disappearing around me. Just 6 weeks before that, I had worn a fitted mermaid bridal gown. How could I possibly have a tumor the size of a football inside of me? You would never know by looking at me. This couldn't be right. My scan must be mixed up with someone else's. There's just no way. The first thing you want to know is, what's my prognosis? What's my chance of surviving this thing? Stage 3 ovarian cancer has about a 39% chance of surviving to 5 years. 39% chance of making it to just 35 years old. It was so unfair. My life had just begun. I was just getting started. Now, everyone says, why was heartburn your main side effect? It's strange, I've never heard that before. Well, because the size of the tumor was pushing against my intestines and my stomach. It was causing me to have acid reflux. My stomach was actually running out of space. In complete denial, I decided the next day I was going to call my doctor and ask her to scan me again. This simply could not be true. My doctor calmly reconfirmed that the scan was mine. But instead of repeating the scan, she wanted to scan me with something different, a different test, to get better imaging, a CT scan. The result was a tumor on my ovary the size of a football. Ovarian cancer. Whether I liked it or not, I had ovarian cancer. This was my reality and I needed to face what was coming next. My entire world became about cancer. Nothing else mattered. I needed to find a way through this. I started researching and digging to find out what was the best path forward. Who was the best surgeon for ovarian tumors? What was the best treatment? Did I need to be in a clinical trial? I spent hours researching. I found myself at home in stacks of library books and research papers. I knew the answer had to be there. I just just needed to keep looking, and I needed to find the answer fast. My surgery to remove the cancer was scheduled in 2 weeks. I needed a plan before then. With a background in cancer care, I had access to every medical journal I could ever want. Plus, I was no stranger to this type of situation. Over the past several years, I had spent time with thousands of women who had been diagnosed with cancer. They were in the exact same position that I was in right now. But I had never gone through this myself, you know? I was missing that practical piece. I could read and read and read about cancer, but what was it actually like to go through treatment? I didn't have any real life perspective. On a particularly cold winter day, I was heading into the library and I ran into an old friend. I hadn't seen her in so long, and the last I had heard from her, she had been diagnosed with cancer. But that was years before, and here she was now. She looked amazing, the picture of health. She looked fit, strong, vibrant skin, long flowing hair. I was completely surprised she looked so great. She was just like me, too young, too fit, too healthy to have cancer. Now, here she was. I practically ran up to her. She was exactly who I needed to see. She was the missing piece. She knew what it was like to go through cancer treatment. I asked her question after question after question, and then I realized something big. I had been researching in all the wrong places. She said that everyone focuses on cancer treatment and getting you to be cancer-free. But everyone forgets about cancer recovery. Chemo, surgery, radiation, those are all tough, and you do need help to get through that. Being a cancer survivor, that lasts the rest of your life. Wow. I needed to shift gears. I needed to focus on cancer recovery and staying cancer-free. But I also had more time until I crossed that bridge. First, I needed to get this massive tumor removed. It was gonna be an extensive surgery, but I was ready. Let's do this. 33 staples to put me back together. But as it turned out, surgery was the easy part. Chemo was up next. The side effects terrified me, and rightfully so. I had personally witnessed so many people struggle with nausea, mouth sores, hair loss, and now it was my turn. I was so exhausted. I was used to being so independent, and now I had to rely on my husband to do almost everything for me. My friends were dropping off groceries, sending me messages of love and support, but I was starting not to recognize myself anymore. It was such a big accomplishment if I could just make it from my bed to the couch. Some days I was even too exhausted to do that. I needed to do these intense cycles of chemotherapy, and with each cycle, the side effects got worse. Things were getting really dark. My final cycle of chemo was coming up, and it was going to be the toughest of all. They were upping the dose of my chemo. My oncologist felt like I was tolerating the chemo well and that I could handle a higher dose. He wanted to make sure that we hit the cancer hard while I was still in chemo. We were going to increase the dose and give it this one last shot. I was nauseated, food tasted disgusting, and I was depressed, anxious, and scared. I struggled through that last cycle of chemo, but it was done. I was done chemo. I had made it to the end. It was over. When I came home from chemo, I wanted to have a huge party. I wanted to celebrate, but there was no way I could do that. I was sobbing. I couldn't believe I had made it through. I was cancer-free. There was finally hope. I could go back to living my life, back to life with my husband and my friends, and back to the job I loved. But there was a problem. I thought when I got to the end of chemo that I would have reached the finish line. I thought I'd feel this huge sense of relief, but instead, I just felt like a stranger in my own body. Now, that old friend had warned me about cancer recovery. She said it was tough. She said there was going to be very little support. So this was my true test. It wasn't enough to be cancer-free. I needed myself back. During chemo, I had gained 20 pounds. I was under the false impression that you would lose weight during chemotherapy. It's tough to realize that most women actually gain weight. I was drenched in hot flashes. It made me so mad to be having hot flashes so much younger than when I should have naturally gone through menopause. Of course, I was exhausted. I had hoped I was going to be able to jump back into work. I loved working in cancer care. It was my dream job. But the exhaustion, it kept me down for a lot longer than I expected. It had been months since I finished chemo, and I was wondering if I would ever feel like myself again. I felt like I was 30 years old, but trapped inside the body of a little old lady. I didn't recognize myself at all. It was time to really dedicate myself to recovery and go back into research mode. And after that, I started to see glimpses of who I used to be. Those glimpses stretched into days, then weeks, then months, until finally, when I looked in the mirror, I recognized the person that was looking back at me. Having gone through this entire experience, I can say that I truly understand what life is like as a cancer survivor. I was getting my life back. I was returning to some kind of sense of normal. As a cancer survivor, I now have that real life experience of what cancer is like. I'm so much better at caring for my patients because of it. No one truly understands what it's like to go through cancer except for another cancer survivor. When I went back to work after cancer, I decided to start focusing on a new path: cancer recovery. There is such little support to help women get back to themselves after cancer. The side effects from treatment are so severe: the weight gain, hot flashes, exhaustion. Everyone tells you that that's just your new normal. It's the price you pay for being cancer-free. That's a complete lie. It doesn't have to be like this for you. You can be the healthiest, fittest, and strongest version of yourself after cancer. You just need support and a mentor to help you get there. It's been 6 years since I've been diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, and I'm still cancer-free. Even with only one ovary, my husband and I were able to grow our family. On St. Patrick's Day, we were blessed with our son, Maximilian. Born on St. Patrick's Day, we are very lucky indeed. And most recently, we had our little girl, Madeline. With only one ovary, I'm living proof that you really can put all your eggs in one basket. Both of our children are miracles. I know firsthand that cancer is indescribably difficult. Treatment is tough, recovery is tough, but there's hope. You don't need to feel stuck in your struggles. This doesn't have to be your new normal. You don't have to feel alone. Find the help you need and get back to yourself. Get started right now. I've linked up this next video here on exactly what you need to know about chemotherapy. Click the link here and I'll see you in the next video.